the author, Margaret Heffernan, did some research, and she went around people in organisations all over the world and said to them, is there anything in the workplace that you have, serious concerns about? 85% of people said yes. Since we've started the TellSafely campaign, we have heard from whistleblowers across all sorts of different sectors. The health service is a big one. There's lots of health service whistleblowers. Also care homes, which are usually privately run. CQC, the Care Quality Commission. Railway workers, people who've got concerns about police action or inaction, local councils. It's sort of across the board. And although there have been some very high-profile whistleblowers in all sorts of walks of life, most people are just very ordinary, doing their jobs, and they come across something that they can't just look the other way. They have to do something. They feel compelled to do something.
I mean, the first thing I think I want to say about whistleblowers is that, people don't really seem to understand the word whistleblower. That term has been bandied around so much in the last couple of years, particularly. It's become very intense. It means Edward Snowden on one hand. It means what the US government thinks on the other hand. You've got people like the Levinson inquiry, where he seems to be saying things that are quite negative about whistleblowers and the reporting of whistleblowers who are apparently vexatious and making things up in their work about their employer. We're just going by the kind of dictionary thing, where a whistleblower by definition is just somebody who is innocent and reports wrongdoing in their workplace. And they're raising concerns. That may be a public concern, it may be something to do with the health and safety issue, but it's something that somebody in a position of authority is getting wrong. And we're taking it from there.
What do you do when you're in your workplace, you're doing your thing, and you realise that something around you is very wrong? And that happens to people in all sorts of walks of life. It happens to people in the health service, care homes, railway workers. And we're programmed almost to look the other way. We're encouraged to look the other way and just let it pass and not get stressed out about it. But sometimes, yeah, exactly, and just sort of more hassle than it's worth. What makes people cross that line and decide to speak out, even though people instinctively know that when you do that, you're going to suffer for it.
A lot of people have actually lost their jobs, they've had bad effects on their health. They've actually tried to address those issues with their work and have been fired or lost their job for it at every level. And we're addressing that particular aspect of whistleblowing. We can all talk about the academic side of whistleblowing, the meaning of the term, and Edward Snowden, but we're actually talking about the whistleblowing law as it is in this country, where people are meant to be protected for raising concerns. And what's happening time and time again is that people are being victimised for raising those concerns. They're being fired or rounded upon by people in positions of power. In Emily's case, she was a corporate lawyer in a very, very powerful, very important company doing work, fulfilling a public purpose. That means they are effectively doing work on behalf of the government. Okay? What was happening was they were doing things that they shouldn't do. And I'm not just saying this on hearsay. There were findings in court of corruption. All those people involved in that corruption are still there in positions of power, affecting yours and my everyday life. Emily's been thrown out. They're continuing to victimise her, and they shouldn't be doing that.
So this whole sort of campaign that you're doing, this actually started because of personal experiences you had with whistleblowing.
Yes, that's right. And then when we started to make our story public, we started to hear from other whistleblowers, and they all had very similar experiences, that they raise concerns. They don't realise that not everyone in their organisation cares about it in the same way that they do. They think that they'll be, I don't think people think they'll be applauded for saying something uncomfortable. We all know that raising uncomfortable issues is difficult, but I don't think many people really understand the impact of having an entire organisation's resources and mindset focused on destroying you. Because it's much easier to personalise it and get rid of you, metaphorically, and from the workplace, rather than focus on what you are saying.
Yeah. Is it kind of like a form of institutional denial? Where they're not willing to accept that it's them that's in the wrong, so it must be you.
Well, we all have a natural inertia about dealing with things. We don't, things that are uncomfortable you don't want to deal with. And if you feel guilty, it's even worse. And there seems to be something that's a very basic human instinct to round on the person who then is outside of the pack. It's like a pack instinct. It's like sometimes equated to the body fighting off an infection. It's called the white corpuscle reaction.
We have yet to have these matters investigated.
How long ago was it that you raised the matters?
Well, the court findings were best part of a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and I first raised concerns in 2009. I won in tribunal, and every government department that we have written to about this has just acted completely complacently, refused to meet us, just rebuffed, just kind of given us some flannel, the form response. And this is a typical response many whistleblowers have found. I was reading an article about an NHS whistleblower who said exactly the same. Every person that she has written to in authority with her concerns, which I believe were upheld in a tribunal, so they're not like one person saying this. This is a judicial finding. Everyone that she turns to in officialdom just slams the door.
We all talk about Jimmy Savile. A lot of people understand about Jimmy Savile. And they talk about how did that happen? Why was he able to operate for so long with so many? Yeah, and they were in. We were interviewed by the BBC by the great John Waite, Radio 4, and he basically explained to us that everybody knew that Jimmy Savile was a bit dodgy. They didn't know it was young girls, but they knew it was girls. This is electric stuff, but our view is it's no different. The same government department for culture, media and sport that seems so outraged and concerned about Jimmy Savile is ignoring our calls to meet with them to raise concerns about a different matter. So it's all very well looking at the past and saying how did those things happen in the past, but these people are still behaving like that now. Now, what are we trying to do with TellSafely? Well, we're going to Downing Street at the end of April, on the 30th of April in the afternoon at 2 p.m. with our MP, with as many people who will join us. And we're going to basically say, whatever you feel about whistleblowers, you're not allowed to victimise those people. It's unlawful to victimise a burglar who walks into your house and robs you. You can't victimise that person. Now, to victimise somebody who's pointed out that you've got your finger in the till at work is a terrible thing to happen. I talked to an expert in whistleblowing law from Australia who was preparing a world report on this, and he said, surely that is a crime, isn't it? Because we're asking for the victimisation of these people to be made a crime. We want the government to actually treat it like they did with drink driving. They said, getting in your car drunk and hurting people is a crime. Now, what happened was all the softies stopped drink driving. I was there in the 70s. I used to see them roll out of the pub and into the car, and they stopped doing it because they didn't want to go to jail. We don't want people to go to jail. We want people to stop picking on people. And what's happening with TellSafely is we're trying to make victimisation of whistleblowers a crime. We're trying to make it a safe thing to do, to be able to say, I'm sorry, I saw the boss do something wrong. I don't want to lose my job. I just want to be able to raise those concerns. I may be wrong, but I need to be protected while you review those issues.
Yeah. I think one of the other things as well is that from what I've seen, most whistleblowers try to raise these issues internally first, and they either, just hit a brick wall, or they get victimised for, they lose the job or demotions, or don't get that promotion they were after, or some other bad thing happens to them. And it's only after things like that have happened that they then start saying, well, the only other avenue is to go public with this, or to take it to the courts or something like that. And even then, it seems that the odds are stacked against them because most people just don't want to know. You've got a lot of people who seem to actively want to prevent the information from getting out. And even in your case, for example, when you won the court case, even if you win the court case and prove that it was definite corruption or wrongdoing, even after that, it's like still nothing seems to change. So
it got worse.
Oh,
it got worse. The victimisation increased. They were writing to Emily's customers. They carried on spreading rumours about her. They wrote to people and said lies, and we wanted to raise this higher and kind of raise these concerns and present this evidence. Who can we turn to now?
Yeah.
We've gone to the top of an organisation providing a government service, and the government won't listen to us. They are giving unquestioning support to the wrongdoers, and they're refusing to even meet with the people who've already proven their case in court.
And it's like we're the wrongdoers for saying something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is the experience that all whistleblowers, I think, will relate to, is that suddenly you feel like you are doing something wrong.
Yeah. When you're faced with that lack of justice, that's what the Palestinians are feeling. That's what the people in Northern Ireland used to feel. That's what Nelson Mandela was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm actually not able to go to the authorities here and talk about. All we want is a meeting.
Yeah, it's kind of weird as well because you always hear the authorities saying things like, if you see something, say something. And yet, when anyone says something, they're like, oh, how dare you say that? And then,
you're fired, nothing here, ships, I see no ships, and then it's all over.
Yeah.
For the person. Because they were foolish enough to believe what the authorities told them.
Yeah. So, I think for most people, especially, if... I think it's only really when you get into this situation that you start to see the reality of things. And for most people who've never sort of hit that point where, out of conscious they have to do something about it, they'll just believe what they're told because, they've not seen any different.
Well, I think the sense of hopelessness is very important, and the authorities use that, and the people in positions of power.
But only once you've sort of blown the whistle. So it's up until the point where you decide to do something about it. I think most people would trust that, they could go to the authorities and it'll be dealt with.
Yes.
And it's only after that they actually try and do that, once they blow the whistle or whatever it is, because this happens in all walks of life. It's not even just whistleblowing. It could be, deaths in police custody. It could be war crimes. Financial crimes. There's just so many different areas where, whether it's whistleblowing or not, the same sort of pattern seems to emerge. Is that we're raised and brought up in a society that tells us, do the right thing, and we just assume that when the day comes, we'll do the right thing, and society likewise will do the right thing. But you then hit this sort of shock where society turns around and goes, we told you to sort of see something, say something, and do the right thing. It doesn't quite work like that. In fact, it's the complete opposite.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. We do in this country have we have quite a high level of trust in authorities, and personally speaking, I certainly did. And I've come across in my life many public servants who are well over and above and doing things for the right reasons. There are lots and lots of good people across the public sector. This isn't an anti-establishment thing. It is sharing an experience which is common to people in this situation. They've seen something, they've said something, and then suddenly their life is turned upside down, and everything that they expected to happen hasn't, and everything bad has been turned against them instead, and it's a complete shock.
I think the other aspect of it, I mean, and people are very focused on the channels for the whistleblower, where you can turn, where the law is helping people and where it's not. But we're more interested in actually what's happening in the workplace. Because in Emily's case, what happened in the workplace was the people that she was, let's say, telling on or reporting for concerns. Let's not say at that stage they were innocent or guilty. Let's just say she saw some stuff that she didn't like, in a way, and she raised it. What they did was, and this sort of phenomenon happens, is you start to involve HR, legal department, junior managers, and they're the ones who are doing the victimizing. And they protect the real wrongdoers at the top. And so what we're trying to do is target those people and make it a crime to be involved in victimizing people, so that you take out that middle layer and you leave the person who's really the wrongdoer, who's been caught with their trousers down, having to deal with a matter on their own and not get a big gang around them. And we think that may help force people to come to the table and talk.
For that sort of middle layer, are they sort of consciously victimising it, or in their minds is it just sort of like they're just doing the job and someone's threatening the company, our job's to fend off threats or something like that?
What do you think? With Emily, the in-house lawyers argued that she was raising her concerns because she had a problem with her sex life.
Okay, that makes it pretty clear.
No, and they brought this to court. They said that she was trying to exploit her illness, which she had as a result of the stress suffered at her work, to get money, and that she was blackmailing the company. Now, she was a lawyer, a goody-goody girl for decades, and had worked for this company for over 10 years, and was their trusted senior attorney in that company. The minute she said, I've got concerns about something, they turned around and they turned on her in that way. They made her sit in a shed with a therapist and talk about her sex life and her relationships with previous boyfriends. This was somebody who had an HR issue at work. The court, of course, threw it all out. And the court decided that they'd victimised Emily for raising concerns.
And they gave an unusual award of aggravated damages to me because the company had behaved so outrageously.
Now, they're all still there. Now,
it doesn't make any difference.
I think this is one of the bigger problems these days is, from the company's perspective, they know that even if there's rulings against them from the courts, that most are just going to pay a fine. No one's going to lose the job. The money, the fine is just like a tiny piece of the annual turnover. No one's going to even miss it.
It's the cost of them keeping their job. And my relatives died in the war. My uncle was a Battle of Britain hero, and I'm ashamed of the country he saved.
Yeah. Wow. So straight away they basically look for. I mean, so you're saying that a lot of whistleblowers have gone through this experience. I'm assuming that by that you mean they've raised the issue internally, and immediately the company starts victimising them or looking for just dreamt up reasons to blame the whistleblower, and say, oh, it's, they're trying to blackmail us, or they're trying to, they're doing it for money, or
or they're crazy, or they've got some grudge, and it comes up again and again. But we're in touch with one whistleblower, in fact, the very, very first mid-staffs whistleblower 10 years ago. And there was just a report published the other day describing what she had suffered from the General Medical Council as a result of raising concerns. They immediately started to spread rumours that she had some sort of serious psychiatric illness, which was completely untrue. And all she had done is raise concerns about standards. And we all know the story about mid-staffs, don't we?
Just for anyone that doesn't know about that, because obviously we've got people going to be listening in different countries, can you just give a quick overview of just what that was, just so that people can get sort of like the gravity of the situation?
Yes, well, there were some serious failings in hospitals in Mid-Staffordshire, the Mid-Staffordshire Hospital. There was evidence of neglect of patients and, I understand, avoidable deaths. Subsequently, many years later, action has been taken, and I believe that the trust has now been, it's now going to be closed down, or has been closed down. But the people who were raising concerns for years, and this is medical practitioners, people from the inside, who've actually gone into medicine in order to help people, and to, they've gone into a caring profession and they're raising concerns about patient safety, and they find that they're not welcome in the health service anymore.
Again, it's just like a systemic problem, really. Now, when I think of sort of whistleblowers, I can probably, 5 or 10 come to mind. But you did a survey or a petition recently, and realised that there's rather a lot more than that, and this is just in the UK. So you can tell us a bit about that?
We started up a petition because we felt very strongly about it, and we've now got over 10,000 signatures. And the really striking thing is the comments that people have left on the petition site, because many people have described their experiences as whistleblowers, or they are the bereaved family of a whistleblower who's sadly taken their lives, and this is not just in the UK, it's across all sectors in different countries, and it seems to be something systemic. We have an active Facebook page with over 2,500 likes on that, and always active discussions happening there, and people sharing their stories and experiences. The same stories come up again and again in different contexts.
So it's not like whistleblowing, there's just a few isolated cases. It's literally, even just in the UK, there are thousands and thousands of such scenarios.
Well, in fact, so many that there are laws to protect whistleblowers. There is the actual, I can't remember it, you're the lawyer.
Yeah, there's a Public Interest Disclosure Act, and there are organisations like Public Concern at Work who do advise whistleblowers. And we should remember that actually, what's this all about? Let's take the health service. We all pay for the health service as taxpayers, and we all use the health service, and we trust it to keep us well. And people are raising concerns in order to improve things. The public have an interest in getting this information out there, and usually it's information that only people inside will know.
So I think that's perhaps an important point to raise. It's not that clearly whistleblowers aren't so much doing it for themselves. It's not like a personal grudge. They're doing these things for the greater good of people everywhere. It's selfless. It's a selfless act.
I think there's a lot of it's a very polarising issue. For some people, whistleblowers are saints. For some people, they are betrayers. And actually, they're just ordinary. They're just doing, they're like every human being. They're often flawed, mixed up, probably very lonely and confused and don't know what to do. But yes, there is a moral, certainly in my situation, there was a very strong compulsion that I felt that this is wrong and I cannot stand by and let it happen. Of course, if you ask my former employer, they will tell you that I was entirely motivated by greed, my problems, and my sudden desire to destroy the company and everybody in it. So we're obviously in disagreement on that one. My impression, speaking to whistleblowers, is that they tend to be loyal, conservative types.
I think there
care
is
about their organisations.
Yes, there is evidence that the typical whistleblower often feels very passionate about the organisation that they're raising concerns about. It just seems to stop when they are naming or raising concerns about somebody in a position of power. And this is the problem. How can you escalate these concerns above the person at the top? It's a real problem.
So, for anyone that's sort of listening, thinking, that they might have seen some injustice or wrongdoing themselves and are considering becoming a whistleblower, what kind of things should they do? What kind of things should they be prepared for? Is it that you blow the whistle and then suddenly everything's okay after that? Is there a procedure to go through? Are there organisations out there that can help them? These kind of things.
You do have to go through procedures. It's not something that people should undertake lightly. They should be aware of the risks to themselves. Now there are laws to protect whistleblowers. We don't think they're strong enough. Get advice. There are free advice organisations. Public Concern at Work is one. You can come to our Facebook page at TellSafely. We don't give advice, but at least you will be amongst people who've been through the experience, and there's an awful lot of mutual support that can be given. Remember, you're not alone. Remember, it's not you that is wrong. Try and raise the concerns as professionally as you can, and I know that's very difficult. And just, I think, sort of consider it carefully, take advice beforehand, and get support.
I'm Emily's husband, and I've seen what they've done. And I think Emily's a lawyer, and she's always very positive in these sorts of interviews. But I think there are very, very few choices for the whistleblower. And if we set the clock back with hindsight, we would have played a lot more politics, because there isn't really, there are things you can do. Emily's concerned about people who are vulnerable and worried about their lives, and they need company and support. I'm concerned about the law and the support that should be there and isn't there, and so I can't leave this discussion on such a positive note, I'm afraid. I feel there's more action that needs to be taken, and there's more that needs to be done. The main people who should hang their head in shame are the government and the officials who are responsible for hearing the concerns of others and choose to wholesale give their support to wrongdoers. Now, in our case, I name and shame the Department for Culture, Media and Sport and the Cabinet Office, who have been invited to hear our concerns and have declared their view on those concerns before meeting us. So they haven't even met with us. And the real message from whistleblowers is that they're not being heard and they're not welcome. And that's my concern.
And that's, I guess, what the driving force behind this event on the 30th of April. So, if people want to, is it something where if people want to take part in this event, they can come down and lend support?
Let's get the language right, because I'm in the middle of negotiating with the police about that event at Downing Street, and obviously the government really doesn't like any mass crowds and embarrassment. So what we're saying at this stage is we are having an event where TellSafely is presenting a petition and comments by people to number 10 Downing Street, because the petition is targeting the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister. Emily actually went to Cambridge with the Deputy Prime Minister, knows Nick Clegg. She's not actually used that contact, but we're letting people know she knows him so that he's not embarrassed on the day, seeing a mate of his from university presenting his petition. But it's not really to him, and it's not really to David Cameron, it's to Parliament across the road. And we're presenting this to the two highest officers in Parliament and saying, your civil servants, the ones that we've come across who have handled this are, on the one hand, frankly, corrupt and shouldn't be there. They've been involved in destroying documents and corruption of their own. There have been findings and evidence of this. And on the other hand, completely indifferent to matters of concern. And we need a hearing, and so does everybody else who hasn't actually. They've been denied justice. This is Nazis. And so we want to actually present this. We're not allowed to have any kind of demonstration. We're not allowed to wear the green TellSafely T-shirt. We have to. If we're going to Parliament, we must appear as though we have no issues with government, as though we are friendly and happy, and we want the people in London to have a nice sunny day. We're not allowed to have banners, and we're not allowed to in any way look like a mob who are upset or angry. So
nothing to see here, move along now.
Within those parameters, we would like, we are allowed numbers, so we're allowed to turn up with many, many people who will stand there politely and politely give their love and support to all the people who are
calm, reserved people that they're not there to shout. They're just there to sort of like be in solidarity, I guess.
Yes.
We hope people will come and show solidarity for whistleblowers who have a pretty awful experience in this country.
And I guess if there's any, I know there's a lot of citizen journalists out and about in London, so if any of those would like to go there and live stream it and take some pictures, post those up on Twitter.
That would
be great. People want to tell their stories. They want opportunities to meet the press and talk about the things that are happening.
Do you think like the sort of like the traditional corporate mainstream press are interested in these sort of issues?
I think that we've had a lot of interest from the press, and actually the whistleblower is the natural ally of the journalist, because they supply stories that journalists cannot get to.
Well, you're not allowed to tap phones anymore, so it's all about genuine leads from people on the inside, and those are whistleblowers by definition. So.
Are the journalists, though, are they just seeing whistleblowers as a source of stories, and they're not really bothered about the well-being of the whistleblower or the overall, what's the word, sort of environment or culture that whistleblowers are going to be faced with as a result of what they do?
I think, speaking personally, I didn't want to make myself the story. I actually felt strongly about the issues, and the treatment that we had was quite unbelievable. But actually I felt that the issues, they had to be worth something.
I'm thinking more, are they just seeing whistleblowers as like a resource? And it doesn't, they're not, the press could perhaps do a lot more to raise awareness of the overall general issues that are faced by whistleblowers in general, rather than any one specific whistleblower. The press could perhaps help to, make the government see the importance of having laws that actually work.
Yes, I agree. I think so. That there are some laws that could fool you into thinking you'll be protected if you raise concerns, and I think it's really important that people know what it's really like. It's you're on your own, and you're going to be hit with everything. And I think that's scandalous. I don't think that this should be happening in our country, and I think that the press should be more outraged.
I think that's what I feel about the press, and I'm not talking about you, Guy. Just that you're having a discussion with us in this length is very, very important for what we're trying to do, because I find the press are not working hard enough, and they're not asking enough critical questions about what's really happening out there. We dealt with the BBC FOI specialist about the freedom of information sort of thing, and he was great about that and didn't want to talk about the context of that. We talked to the Telegraph about technical companies, and they've been fantastic in one way, but it's all about the techie section because Emily's company was a technical company. So we're getting these very narrow sort of ways of kind of leaping up and saying something's wrong here, guys.
It's like myopic glimpses of an issue, but you never get the whole issue. There's always, you need sort of like a holistic view to really understand what the problem is and that kind of thing. And the media just seems to be, oh, well, we report on science or technology, so we'll just take that bit and ignore the rest. And, you know, they're just churning stuff out, I guess, at the end of the day. They just need another story to fill some space on the newspaper or on the TV show.
They are, if they get their head around it, they are actually interested. You know, one of the whistleblowers was about airline pilots reporting concerns about being made to fly planes without a comfortable amount of fuel on board to deal with contingency. You know, we are interested in these scenarios. When we get on a plane, we want to feel safe, and the press should be interested in that. In Emily's case, a company running critical national infrastructure has a board who are corrupt and have findings of corruption in court. We're all ignoring that. Now, the press are interested in that, but they're just overwhelmed with leads, aren't they? There's just too many things. And I think I would like the press, I wish, to actually try and help the whistleblower and give the whistleblower more support in that lonely role.
I mean, I guess if you look at, for example, like a very high-profile whistleblower, specifically the likes of Edward Snowden, he seems to have been very careful about which reporters he chose to release the information to, and not just in that they were good reporters, but that they would look after him as well, and help shield him from all the flack that was going to come.
That's right, and I think it's Edward Snowden has kind of helped us and not helped us. You know, he's a star, he's a celebrity, and he's set the benchmark for kind of. But Edward Snowden, you know, the thing you can learn from him is that he didn't feel he had an escalation process. He wasn't able to report concerns because everybody that he could report the concerns to already knew about those concerns. So it's still about that, but really he you know, we're talking about just normal people who spot something. You are meant to raise it first in work, and then you're meant to sort of raise it with a senior manager. And it's that this isn't kind of Edward Snowden stars world. This is just normal people saying, I wasn't comfortable about that. I actually saw you go into that cupboard with that child, or I saw you take that money, and I'm just feeling uncomfortable about that.
And even at that stage, they're going to start meeting resistance.
That's right. Absolutely. And there needs to be just some more support on the ground. And people are focusing too much on the character of the whistleblower, the person, rather than mechanisms in work that will help the whistleblower.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why, for example, in your case, the company lawyer was saying, oh, it's because of your sex life and stuff like that? It's trying to, you know, assume, almost like they're going to assume it's going to come out into public, so they'll do a character assassination, start working on that from the outset, ready for when it does go public, and then people will be all talking about, oh, well, you know, look at the person who blew the whistle, it's obviously them.
Exactly. And it works. It's extremely effective. If one person is saying something uncomfortable and you can discredit that person's character, you've got no worries. If you all stand together against that person and discredit them, you're laughing.
As someone sort of like who sees news about whistleblowers but hasn't been one myself, I had no concept of how many cases there are, and the fact that the problems start effectively right from the outset. And then when you do get to a point where you think, it's gone to court now, it's been proven in court, it's all over. It's not all over.
Yeah. I'm very interested in that aspect. Is that the whistleblower isn't always right, and we need to also protect people at work. We're also interested in protecting the manager against the vexatious member of staff who doesn't like the particular deal they got at work. We're not talking about protecting vexatious people who are making up lies about people who are just trying to manage people and do their job. We're talking about the methodology, the way that you handle complaints at work to protect both sides. What you mustn't do is start victimising anyone, even if they're right, even if they're wrong. You mustn't victimise, you mustn't hurt people. You're not allowed to hit somebody who's robbing your house. You're not, and you're not allowed to hurt people and destroy their jobs or health or bully them because whether they're right or wrong, because they've told on someone. And if we can get that very critical little bit that's happening at work right, then there'll be a more dignified context for people to raise concerns. Yeah? Yes, you saw me taking that money surreptitiously because I was buying a present for a member of staff from the company. It needs the context for things to be heard and dealt with properly. And if you take away that whole ability for companies to victimise, Emily's company boasted about the fact that they'd cut off her communication and emails from the company and broke the law. And they basically boasted about it and admitted it after they didn't say it in court, they said it afterwards. And they basically said, yeah, we did that, we lied to her to protect the company from her. The other thing is that companies can victimise people. Individuals, if an individual victimises somebody, that borders on harassment if it's sort of multiple times. But a company can victimise people, and nobody has to pay a price for that.
And even if there is a price, it's just a small financial slap on the wrist, which is not going to stop anyone. So, if people want to help, what could people do to help? I mean, obviously you've got the Facebook group, and I'll post a link to that. But I believe you've also got a website.
I think like the Facebook /TellSafely page. Please come and like it. Please join in the myriad of discussions that are on that. It's not too late to sign the petition, although we've crossed our benchmark of 10,000. Making victimisation of whistleblowing a crime is a complex thing to ask people to get their head around. We're not asking them to vote for Justin Bieber's next outfit. We're asking them to actually understand a complex piece of legislation and the implications of that. So I'm amazed that more than 200 people signed it, yet alone 10,000 people. The kind of people that have signed it are professionals, members of parliament, ex-health workers, ex-railway workers, and people who have lost their jobs and suffered as a consequence of it. Thousands of them. We've reached that target. I don't, there may be more life, but I think we've proved the point that people believe that, there's a mass of people that believe a change of law in this area is warranted. Now, show your support in numbers. Please like the page. Please come down to Downing Street on the 30th of April and just stand there with us and take some photos and let everybody around you see that there's a lot of people around who are concerned, who are raising their joint concern. We're
delivering the petition to Downing Street at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 30th of April, and we hope as many people will be there as possible to show solidarity.
Okay, well, it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you, and I hope we can perhaps chat again after the 30th, so let us know how that goes.
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak to you.
It's been wonderful. Thank you very much.